Welcome, gentle viewers, to yet another review of a classic science fiction book which I've just finished. As the thumbnail doubtless told you, this is The Cloudwalker by Edmund Cooper. I've got this rather nice little edition here. I really like the artwork. The artwork is actually appropriate to the topic of the story, but it's also very artistic. I like the juxtaposition of the ocean and fire and the dirigible. It wraps all the way around, and as you can see, it's not in brilliant condition. In fact, like many of my books, it isn't all one book, it's more a set of pages. Still, that's the story of my life. I carry them around with me, I read them on the beach, whatever. This is Coronet science fiction, and it is published in 1973. No, 1975, the original was 1973, so it's a pretty early one. Hasn't survived too badly, really. Now, this is very much a post-apocalyptic novel, and it's funny that I ended up reading this because I had my previous review. If anyone keeps up with all my reviews, you will know that my last review is The Long Tomorrow, Long Tomorrow by Leigh Brackett. I don't expect anyone to keep up with my reviews. There's rather a lot of them, and I wouldn't want watching my reviews to cut into your very valuable reading time, because reading books is far more important than watching YouTube videos. Though I do appreciate you watching. Anyway, I put down The Long Tomorrow, which was a brilliant read and I thoroughly enjoyed, and I gave it 5 stars. And I walked over to my to-read shelf and I picked up a book pretty much at random. I knew I wanted an author whose writing I enjoyed, but Leigh Brackett's writing was actually so wonderful that I knew it would be a hard sell if I went from it to a book that was a little bit less well written. So I chose Edmund Cooper, a person whose writing I enjoy disproportionately. And so I went from a post-apocalyptic novel set in a small, rural, decentralized, religion-controlled America by a female author to a post-apocalyptic, small, rural, decentralized and controlled by religion story by an English male author. And it was in the first chapter that I realized just how funny that was. So, The Cloudwalker centers around a main protagonist who's male, much like The Long Tomorrow does, and he's a little bit different. It's a little bit different. England has fallen into a feudal, refallen into a feudal system after the fall of the first men and the second men. I'm not quite sure which ones they are, but we gather that there was too many machines, probably some sort of warfare, big mass machines of war sometimes. Cooper doesn't really worry about telling us how it happened. Anyway, England has now gone back to a very decentralized fiefdom-style organisation. There's no real central government and there's no real central organisation. Each seigneur is the lord of his own area and controls it in his own way. The only real centralisation is a religion. Now, Cooper doesn't use Christianity. What he's done, he's created an invented religion of Luddism. Cooper was a known atheist, and he used religion as a weapon of mass destruction kind of in his novels, and you can't ever really doubt that he sees it often as a negative force. So he's created this religion based on Ned Ludd. I'm sure most people have heard of Luddites, they're people who fear machinery and technology. I will occasionally call myself a Luddite in the sense of humour, because controlling mobile phones and technology isn't always my thing. Anyway, I'm going to read a bit from page 122. I don't do that often, so forgive me. As Christianity declined, so Luddism rose. It was a more appropriate philosophy. Christianity had spoken for universal brotherhood and against oppression. His philosophies were outmoded. More important than universal brotherhood and oppression was the question of survival of the human race. Twice the human race had attempted to destroy itself by the use of machines. In retrospect, it was seen that the one person who had opposed machines was the true saviour of mankind. Ned Ludd, the idiot boy of Leicestershire? Don't know how to pronounce that. Acquired, in retrospect, divine power. It was discovered that he had broken small loaves and fed thousands. It was discovered that he had walked upon the River Trent without sinking. It was discovered that he had changed water into beer on the eve of his crucifixion. And this is the sort of thing that Cooper is really, really into. He has a realistic understanding of how miracles and special events are conscripted from one religion to another, as we see in the entire history of deistic religions. I've read a fair bit about that. It's very interesting how a new religion will rise up and it will inherit a lot from the previous ones. Anyway, I like what Cooper does with that. He doesn't do a lot of it. He just does enough so that you understand that religion is a strong motivating force. And that is important because our main character is called Kieran. He's, as a young child, I think about 5 years old, 5 to 10, he has already decided that what he wants to do more than anything else is fly. Since he can't turn himself into a bird, he's going to have to build a machine to fly. This is heavily opposed by the church. It's a machine. They even burn someone at the stake for trying to create steam engine. So much more anti-machine than he's going to put up with people building hot air balloons, which he does eventually do. So Kieran is apprenticed to a painter who adores him, teaches him his craft, and in the course of his life, this large group of, I'm going to say, organized pirates descend on the area near his village. They come, they sack, rape, pillage, destroy his people. And he'd already been experimenting with creating hot air balloons. He creates a hot air balloon and uses it as an offensive weapon to drop fire on the unsuspecting and unprepared ships below. It's a great story. I really do enjoy the way Edmund Cooper builds a world, and you almost always see it through the eyes of one person who's often a little bit different to all the others. So Kieran's story arc is really interesting. While he's an apprentice to the painter, he goes up to the castle where the Lord wants him to paint his daughter, so he makes a whole heap of sketches of the daughter in order to bring about one masterwork painting, which he insists that his master sign, even though he did most of the actual work. In the course of that, him and the Lord's daughter fall in love, and it's her destruction at the hands of the pirates that leads him, or helps lead him, in his ambitious flying machine creation. And so basically we follow Kieran in his story arc. I really disproportionately enjoy Cooper's writing. I don't know why, I always have. I just find it very easy to read. He's not a flawless author. His writing can be a bit superficial at times. So Kieran's story arc, he starts as a very naive, idealistic young boy who at the age of 5 decides that he's going to create flying machines. And by the time he's 30, he's already achieved that. But he also goes from being a naive, biddable, pleasant young man to being bitter, harsh, war leader style. And this is a sort of transition that Edmund Cooper does with a lot of his characters. And I feel that end, bitter, strong, hard character is very much a Cooper character. Many of his books have it. There's another thing that Cooper does a lot. As most people who review Cooper's work or his bibliography or whatever will say, he had a strange attitude to women. And they rarely will go any further because, of course, Cooper was writing in the 60s and the 70s, when a lot of the science fiction and fantasy writers were men, and a lot of them had strange attitudes to women, but usually you could tell what they were. A few of them were outright misogynistic, a few of them belittled women, a few just didn't include them. And I've got no problem with that. I've got no problem not including women in a story if you're not good at writing women. Write what you're good at, and I'll enjoy the pleasant, completed work. That's not Cooper. Cooper writes women, and he writes them oddly. For example, and this is a spoiler, but it's a pretty old book, so whatever. So when Kieran is sent up to the castle to make all these drawings of Alex, she basically treats him as a peasant, piece of dirt, and she just taunting him and treating him very badly, up to the point where he's had enough, he snaps, he turns her over her knee and he wallops her. And after that, she falls in love with him. Ouch! Ouch, Cooper, you'd never get away with that today. I don't think he's misogynistic. I don't think he fails to understand women. He always has some women that are well written, but he often has these weird little flights that you just have to sort of twitch about and get over, if you can get over. If you can't cope with that sort of weird writing of women, then Edmund Cooper probably isn't for you. But I first started reading him when I was young and impressionable, and I enjoy his writing despite that. The writing itself is serviceable. It's not a literary genius, and reading him after Leigh Brackett, that was particularly noticeable. It's enjoyable. It's a great story. He's very good at lots of characters and their interactions. So you've got Kieran himself, you've got Master Hobart, who's a painter and is created as a great character. You've got small things like the fact of arthritis, and he's growing old, and he's got fondness. You've got all these interconnected webs of connections between people, and I think Cooper does that well. And even when he's got a small group like Transit, which was one of the first books of his that I've read, where you've got 4 connections, his webs between people are what makes his books very enjoyable. So yes, not much more to say about Cloudwalker. Post-apocalyptic, I guess, child to man journey, whatever that particular trope's called, I can't remember. Very, very English. I love the notion of a post-apocalyptic England going back into fiefdoms. And I like the town. I like the way the town was described. I like the way the apprenticeship and trade sort of things were described. Good book, thoroughly enjoyed it. And I think Cooper himself is in some ways more interesting than a lot of his books. And if I ever get around to doing a whole video of just about a specific author, I think Cooper's a high candidate, because you never really see much about him. He doesn't have the realms written about him that I feel that a Heinlein or Asimov or even probably Leigh Brackett have. So yeah, an interesting author. I do enjoy him. Thank you for watching. Don't know what else to say. Do recommend it if you can cope with that slight oddness, that quirky thing that he does when he's writing women. Do recommend. Have a great day. And read good books. And remember, any books you read are good books.